What is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be ranking the top 25 best Walking Dead episodes from the entire franchise. So obviously season 10 just recently ended. We still have one whole season to go. I'll probably do another ranking by the time season 11 is all done, but that's sometime in the future. I've already ranked all 10 seasons from worst to best a couple months ago. I've ranked every episode within each individual season as well, so you can hear all my thoughts on every single episode throughout all 10 seasons thus far. But when it comes to my 25 favorite, the ones that I think are the best 25 episodes of the whole franchise, I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a video talking about those and listing them out. I'm not going to go too in-depth on each episode. I kind of just want to get my general thoughts out there as quick as possible, just so you guys can have my ranking and you can know which episodes I think are the best from the series. Let me know your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well and smack the like button on this video. I would certainly appreciate it. So I would say all of the episodes on this list are episodes I love. They're all at least like 9 out of 10s, and then some of them at the top are like straight up almost perfect 10 out of 10s. I don't think anything's a perfect 10 out of 10 though, but they're definitely getting very close to that. There's definitely some 9.8s, 9.9s, and all that good stuff. But let's start with the number 25 spot. That's going to be season 3 episode 1, which was titled Seed. So of course the premiere of season 3 was one of the most exciting episodes for its time because there was so much happening. So this was the introduction of the prison, of course, and the group comes here after a crazy finale from season 2. And the sequences that this episode has and when it comes to zombie action or walker action, whatever you want to call it, was phenomenal. So you have this first part where they have to take out the field in the prison, and that scene goes pretty well, not too many problems. Then the next morning, they have to take out the courtyard, and that scene is one of my favorite scenes from the season, where you have the group all kind of circled around each other, and you have Maggie there as well. Maggie was a badass in this episode. She was like slicing at walkers, and they were all slicing at them, not using guns because they didn't want to waste too much ammo. That scene was awesome. Then eventually they get into the prison tombs, and then they have to start clearing out the tombs itself. And then of course Herschel gets bit, Rick has to chop off his leg. All of that stuff is some of the craziest stuff from The Walking Dead history. And all while this is happening, you also have the introduction of Michonne, and you kind of learn not really much about her, but you kind of just see what she's been up to with Andrea. And yeah, that stuff wasn't all that interesting. We don't really get to know more about them until episode 3 and what's going on with them. But in terms of what was happening with the prison group, some amazing stuff. And even just the dialogues between the characters, because there was a lot of high tensions, especially with Rick, because in the previous episode, Rick was just basically telling the whole group, like, I'm your leader, you're gonna do what I say, basically, because it's not gonna work otherwise. We're gonna have people dying and people getting killed all the time if we start letting other people, influence our decisions. He's like, I'm clearly the best one here. Very egotistical speech that he had in season 2. So everyone just kind of was almost fearful of Rick in a way. And that made it a lot more interesting. And a lot of the stuff in this episode was just great. Coming number 24th spot, I've got season 9, episode 13, which was titled Choke Point. So this episode has one really awesome section to it. The other parts are kind of not as interesting, but they're still fine the way they are. So of course, the main excitement from this episode was Daryl versus Beta. I think that's the thing everyone was most excited for. And yes, it definitely delivered. Not completely. I do wish their fight was a little bit more brutal. Maybe like Daryl got severely injured in it to make it kind of have some more stakes to it. And because it wasn't followed up with another fight in a later season, kind of was disappointing. Like I was hoping for a rematch. And yes, that season 10 finale with Daryl killing Beta, that wasn't a rematch. He just stabbed him in like 2 seconds. That's not a fight. I was hoping for a fight between all of them and Negan as well. So this episode definitely loses some of its excitement when I realized they didn't really follow this up with anything too exciting. There was no big payoff after this fight, but the fight itself was pretty cool. And just the whole idea of them kind of hiding in this building while the whole Whisper, and a bunch of Whisperers were coming after them, because Beta was leading a bunch of Whisperers and also a lot of walkers to this building. And they had some pretty cool action. Connie was kicking ass in a couple scenes. You got Henry kicking ass. Even Dog got a nice little kill in one scene. He came up and just gnawed on some Whisperer dude. So that was some cool stuff. You also had Carol and Ezekiel and the Kingdomers doing some fair type stuff. They were talking to this group called the Highwaymen, and they have a little interaction with them. It was an okay scene, and then you have the Highwaymen actually coming and helping some of the Hilltoppers, including Tara and the new characters, to actually go to the fair. So a very general episode, but I think the stuff with the Whisperers at the building was some of the coolest stuff from this season, so it has to get a lot of credit from me because of that. Coming number 23 spot, I've got Wrath, the season 8 finale. So this episode gets a lot of unnecessary hate, I think. I was definitely disappointed, I would say, but I'm definitely able to be disappointed in an episode and still love it. Definitely was disappointed that the battle wasn't that big, because this was supposed to be the big ending of All Out War, and yes, we had some really cool battles before that, but I was hoping for just one last really awesome battle, but because all the guns exploded, it kind of forced them into this scenario where they only really killed a few saviors and then the rest of them surrendered. So it was kind of like there was really no battle there, to be honest, which was a little depressing. I wish I wish Negan and Rick had a bit of a better fight within that sequence, maybe more like the comics where he breaks limbs from Rick, like really intense stuff that happened in the comics. I was kind of hoping for something a little bit more similar to that. And the dialogue wasn't it was fine in that scene. I love this scene, the music especially, and the build up to Rick slitting Negan's throat was all really good. But just comparing it to the comics did it a little bit better. And I'm always going to compare it because that's just how I do. But the comics, I kind of liked it a little bit more. But it was still a really cool scene. And in terms of story and the build up from Carl's death to this episode is what makes it so good to me. Everything with the idea of Carl here, how Rick kept imagining him walking with Carl, holding his hand, the one that, he read in the last episode from the letter from Carl, so kind of was giving him some sort of memories from when they were walking and he was holding his hand. And it started making him realize that he should be giving these people mercy. Carl was right. He was thinking about what Carl's future wanted. And that's one of the things I really, really liked about this episode. Like a lot. And some of the best stuff actually came after the battle. Just the way they kind of tied up a lot of loose ends that the story was setting up. You had Daryl bringing Dwight away to kind of just go off on his own. You had the scene with Negan and Michonne talking to Negan, Rick and Michonne talking to Negan, letting him know what his purpose is going to be in society, kind of letting the audience know as well, like, okay, this is why Rick kept Negan alive. Not just because he wanted to, go do with what Carl wanted, but also because, yeah, logistically it makes sense. He wants this community to have some sort of an icon for what, or not really an icon, but an example for what will happen if you do bad things. You will be put in a cell, but it's a civilized thing. It's not like we're going to kill you, you know what I mean? I like that a lot. I think this episode has a lot of deep meanings to it, a lot of deep themes. If it had a better battle, though, it could have been like a top 10 episode for sure. Coming number 22 spot, I've got Conquer, the season 5 finale. Another finale. You're going to see a lot of finales on here because, yeah, of course, mid-season finales are usually bigger episodes just as how they are, so they usually are higher up for me. So Conquer was fantastic. So much stuff was happening in this episode. One of the most jam-packed episodes ever. It was a long one too, so I think one of the longest episodes in the franchise. So the best parts of the episode is obviously the prior episode left off with Rick attacking Pete, or not really attacking Pete. Pete kind of attacked him first, but they get in this fight and Rick kind of beats his ass, pulls out a gun, and now, of course, Deanna's not happy about that. So they're thinking about possibly exiling Rick, and they're trying to talk about it. And that whole sequence with the meeting, while all these other things are also happening at the same time, is so cool. You have Glenn chasing after Nicholas in the woods, and then Nicholas attacking him, and that whole sequence, and then Glenn eventually giving him mercy because Glenn's a good guy, obviously. You have Sasha going crazy, and then Father Gabriel just going crazy as well, and then yelling at Sasha, and Sasha almost killing Gabriel until Maggie comes and stops it. You have Rick finding a walker that Gabriel foolishly let in on accident, and Rick has to attack it, and he realizes these people need to learn because they will die by walkers, by the stupid situations like this, if they don't learn. Just by one walker could have just came into the walls. You're not safe here. You're never safe here. And that whole message, that whole theme was beautiful. And then you had Morgan coming back. And of course, Daryl and Aaron finding him out in that little trap that the wolves made was really cool. That whole scene when the walkers all swarm them in the car. Really awesome stuff. And then Morgan saves them, and then Morgan sees Rick in that episode. Really well set up episode. I just love how jam-packed it is with so much story and so many different interactions with so many characters. Definitely a very, very good episode. Coming to the 21st spot, I've got season 3 episode 8, which was titled Made to Suffer. So Made to Suffer is one of the episodes to me that solidified my love for this show. I started watching this show towards the end of season 2, But in season 3, I definitely loved a lot of the earlier episodes in season 3, especially one of them, which we'll get to later. But this is the episode that made me realize, oh damn, for sure this is my favorite show. Like there's nothing stopping that. I'm gonna watch this show till the end of time. Like I knew it from this episode. This episode took The Walking Dead in a whole nother direction, where it almost made people the priority as opposed to walkers. Because before this, walkers were the biggest threat that we've had. Of course, people here and there were a problem, but they never were a bigger threat than the walkers. But here, the governor specifically was the biggest threat there. That's kind of like the whole theme of the season. I believe the whole phrase for the season was, I think, fight the dead, fear the living, or something like that, or fear the dead, fight the living. It was one of those phrases. So I really liked that idea. And yes, the governor was a terrifying, terrifying villain here. And I love how they come and attack, and we have this awesome battle ensue. It's not the craziest battle ever. There's only like a couple people in it, really, but it still was really great for its time as well. And of course, it's this rescue mission to save Glenn and Maggie from, of course, the Woodbury soldiers, or Woodbury's army, I guess you can call it. And I love how Andrea's there, and she's so clueless as to what's happening because the governor's obviously lying to her. And then towards the end of the episode, that's when she finally finds out what the hell's going on. Not really, but she finds out at least that Daryl's there. And we see Daryl being brought out with Merle in one of the coolest endings to an episode ever, where Governor is there and he's like, you guys have to fight to the death, or whatever he says. And that was just amazing. And all while this is happening, you also have Tyrese being introduced along with Sasha and some other characters at the prison, which was some interesting stuff. Of course, it's a character that had some pretty cool stuff in the later seasons. I do think they underutilized Tyrese a little bit, but still, he was cool. And also, Michonne versus Governor was an awesome scene. And yeah, just everything at that Woodbury, I mean, I loved it. I loved a lot of this episode, so it's got to be pretty high up there on my list. Coming to the 20th spot, I've got season 6, episode 12, which was titled Not Tomorrow Yet. So Not Tomorrow Yet was this sort of episode where they were going through with their plan to attack this outpost and rescue some of the Hilltoppers. So this had a lot of exciting build-up for it because we were all excited to finally get the saviors, get to see Negan eventually, and this episode delivered, especially because this wasn't even something that happened in the comics. So when you get like a really awesome thing that's not even in the comics, it's usually really damn exciting. Like I really get, I get disappointed when there's a really cool comic thing that doesn't happen on the show, but then when the show completely just exceeds my expectations and does something that the comics never even did, is just awesome. And this whole sequence here was one of those things. This whole episode was one of those things, and it was really awesome to see our characters go through and go this mission. And they were all kind of debating the morality behind it, especially Glenn and Heath. I mean, they're killing people in their sleep, it was really messed up, but they knew they had to do it, especially after learning about what these people are capable of, and we know they're not very good people, so we kind of don't feel as bad for it. And you have some really awesome action scenes, especially some of the camera work when Rick's just going in and out of corridors, getting, shot at, and he's like using his AK-47, one of the most iconic Rick Grimes episodes with his AK and his leather, not leather jacket, his cool-ass murder jacket, coat, whatever you want to call it. Negan's the one with the leather jacket. But really awesome stuff, and we're still just kind of learning a little bit more about the saviors here and there, and that's the reason why this episode is so damn great. The other stuff in the episode, I mean, they had some planning before they actually went with the attack, and you have Carol doing some cooking in Alexandria. I mean, that stuff wasn't the best stuff ever, but the main crux of the episode is that last like 20 minutes, which is just great. So yeah, coming to number 19th spot, I've got season 2, episode 13, the finale, which was titled Beside the Dying Fire. I used to have this episode a lot higher, but I think I lowered it because I realized the best part of the episode is the first 10 minutes and like the last like 5 minutes. Everything else in the middle, though, it's not bad. It's just not like the best stuff ever. But that first 10 to 15 minutes when the herd attacks the farm is just amazing. This is actually the first episode of The Walking Dead I've ever seen. My friend showed me it about, like 12 years ago now? Not 12 years ago, I'm crazy. Like 8 years ago, or 9 years ago? I don't know. 2011, 2012, around there. He showed me this episode, and I fell in love with it, but I wasn't like, over the moon about it until season 3 came along. But I was really enjoying it because I love the idea of zombies. I played Call of Duty Zombies before I even got into this, so I already loved the idea of zombies. I love the zombie genre at this point. So I was like, oh, this seems interesting. But I loved the way they made it so damn intense, and the walkers aren't even running. It's not like other zombie genres where you have zombies that sprint. These are walking zombies, but it makes it almost feel more intense because it's an impending doom. And just seeing that herd coming towards the farm slowly while Herschel's just sitting there with a shotgun and just popping out rounds into the walkers. And you got Rick and Carl in the barn, lighting the barn on fire. You have a couple characters getting eaten alive, actually, some really gruesome deaths. It was intense stuff, and it was kind of crazy because they were leaving this farm behind, this home that they kind of called over the past couple episodes, or actually the past season. So yeah, great episode. And then the stuff in the middle, it was just kind of regrouping and such, and more dialogue, fine stuff, not bad or anything, it's just not the best stuff ever. But then that last 5 minutes where Rick reveals to the group not only that they're all infected, so we learn a lot of stuff in this episode as well, but then he also tells everyone that he did in fact kill Shane. And that was a really awesome scene, and Rick has that amazing speech where he's just like, you know what, I need to be the leader here, you guys need to listen to me or else it's not going to work. So all that amazing stuff, love this episode. Coming to our 18th spot, I've got season 4 episode 5, which was titled Interment. So Interment, this is Herschel's episode right here. This is literally Herschel's episode. Of course, he dies in the next episode he's in, so obviously giving him this really awesome episode. Such a great idea from the team. I mean, this sickness arc was one of my favorite arcs in the entire show, and it wasn't in the comics, which is another example of an awesome thing that wasn't in the comics. But these first 4 episodes, or 5 episodes of season 4, I mean, some of my favorite stuff from the whole show. It's just so interesting, especially this group at this prison and having to deal with this sickness. It's crazy. But this was definitely the best episode of those first 5, for sure. I mean, come on now. You have, first of all, Herschel, the whole episode, his conversations with Glenn are fantastic. All the dialogue there is fantastic. And he kind of wants to bring the people who die from the sickness, because of course he has to put them down because they're going to turn. He wants to take them away from the cell block because he has this really awesome quote, one of the best quotes from the entire show, where he says, a sad soul can kill much quicker than a germ. One of the most impactful quotes on the show, bro. Herschel's always had some great quotes, but when he does that, he ends up kind of causing some problems because people are turning way faster than he can handle, right? And that's when mayhem ensues. Maggie has to go help. Glenn has to try to help, but he really can't because he's sick. And then Lizzie's there and she almost gets bit. And Herschel's basically dealing with this all by himself until Maggie shows up. That whole part is amazing. And all while this is happening, Rick and Carl have to deal with a whole walker herd coming and just trampling down the fence. And they have to shoot them all up. I love this all so much because the group feels so small in this episode, so they kind of force characters to be in positions with not having many hands on deck, because you have 4 of some of their best players out and about, and then obviously Carol's not there either, so you have a lot of people just not there. A lot of the people are sick as well, so it's just like Rick, Carl, Maggie, and then you got Herschel. That's it really. Everyone else was either sick or not able to fight at the moment or out doing something. There was a lot of conflict going on with less people, which made everything feel so much more intense. And then the episode ends with one of the best endings of any episode, where you pan out and you see the governor and his little governor's theme plays, and you get really excited for the upcoming episodes because of that. So Interment is fantastic. Coming number 17th spot is one of the most underrated episodes of the entire show. That is season 8 episode 2, The Damned. Why do people hate this episode? I will never understand. I think season 8 got a lot of unnecessary hate, to be honest, and that translates to this episode, I guess. I see people saying this episode was just mindless action, but it's all out war. It's action. Of course we're gonna see I don't know. The episode has a lot of stuff going on though, right? You have Aaron and his little Alexandria group attacking this one outpost, and all the battle stuff there was one of the best battles in the show. Really good action, really well directed. They had clear shots of what was happening. It wasn't just characters shooting and then cutting to characters getting shot. No, they had some pretty cool pan out shots that was showing the action actually unfold. Really liked it. It wasn't perfect or anything, but it was still pretty good. Of course, Eric ended up getting shot in that little battle as well. Francine got killed as well, so you had some stakes there because characters you knew were dying. That gives the battle more stakes. That gives the war more stakes. Again, I think it's way better than the Whisper of War solely for that reason, because characters were actually dying, so it gave it some feels, some war feels, you know what I mean? And then also you had the Hilltop group going to the outpost from season 6, and also Tara was there. And I didn't love what they did with Jesus' character here, because he was just straight up killing people from behind, but then he was trying to keep one dude alive who tried to just kill him. He was being too excessive with the trying to keep people alive thing. It almost seemed unrealistic for his character, but whatever. Then they capture some people, and that all works out. And Morgan, oh my god, Morgan going straight up Terminator mode in this episode was one of the best parts. He was just popping people like there was no tomorrow. Awesome stuff. Rick and Daryl attack another outpost, and they're trying to basically find these guns that they heard about from Dwight that will essentially be able to take out the herd from the sanctuary, so they have to go there to get it. And Rick gets into this fight with this guy who's just trying to protect his daughter. Rick kills him, and then the scene when Rick goes in there to see the baby in there was really impactful, because that's when Rick realizes, like, shit, these saviors are human. You know, they might be working for someone who's bad, they might be working for a bad cause, but they're still, some of them are still human. They just, maybe they're on the wrong side, maybe they don't understand what they're working for, maybe they're just trying to get by, you know what I mean? And I love that. And it completely changes the tone of this season, because a lot of us are like, no, kill them all, kill them all. But then you see this and you're like, wait a minute, I don't really want them to kill all the saviors. Some of them clearly aren't bad people. And this show does a really good job of later on showing this more and more. Morales comes back at the end of the episode. Again, a lot of people say that was pointless. Yeah, in a way it was, but I think the meaning of it was to show Rick that yes, another one of the saviors is someone you knew, someone that had a family, someone that was an actual good person. So just because he's on a different side doesn't necessarily mean he's a terrible person. He's just with the wrong people. Now, obviously, a lot of saviors are clearly bad people, and we do see that happening, but Morales didn't seem like a bad person. He just seemed like he was trying to get by. So that puts more perspective to the savior war. I like that a lot. And coming number 16th spot, I got season 10, episode 11, which was titled Morning Star. So this is actually my second favorite episode of season 10. If you recently watched my season 10 ranking, you would know where this episode was on that list, of course, in the number 2 spot. And yeah, Morning Star was fantastic. A lot of amazing dialogue between a lot of characters in the opening half of the episode, because it's really setting up this big battle that's going to ensue at Hilltop. And you have characters like Carol and Ezekiel talking, you have Carol and Lydia talking, you have Eugene and Rosita, you have Daryl and Ezekiel, you have Daryl and Judith, all these different combinations of characters having dialogue with one another. And it was meaningful dialogue. There's a lot of internal group conflicts going on here. Like Gamma was there as well, and Alden was not having that at all, because obviously Alden lost Enid to the Whisperers, so Alden was not happy to see a Whisperer there. He was all pissed. He didn't want to see Gamma there, and he's been taking care of this baby. And Gamma's, you know, just wants to see the baby because it was, I believe, her nephew or whatever. Really awesome internal group conflicts in this episode. And it all leads up to one of the coolest scenes in The Walking Dead, where Daryl, you got this amazing music playing, one of the best soundtracks ever, and Daryl walks out with the Morning Star, picks it up in slow motion, and then he walks out to the herd, and then the group has to protect Hilltop with their lives. It's the fight of their lives. It was a really good scene, too. They had really good directing, really good action here. Unfortunately, it was cut a bit short. I wish it was a little bit longer. It picks up in the next episode, but even then, it was cut a bit short in that episode as well. I do wish this battle was just extended just slightly, maybe a couple minutes longer. I don't know. It could have been a lot better, but for what it was still pretty awesome. I loved this episode. Coming number 15th spot, I've got season 9, episode 8, which was titled Evolution. So another mid-season finale here, and Evolution was pretty fantastic. So I would say the first half of the episode isn't anything too crazy. It has a really creepy buildup though with the Whispers, because you have Jesus, Aaron, and Daryl, and Dog, I guess you can count Dog as well, going out on this mission to find Eugene, because obviously Rosita came back and was freaking out, like, you guys need to go find Eugene. He's out there, and there's this really creepy vibes going on with the idea of these Whispers. And that last 10 minutes is just phenomenal. Everything else in this episode I don't think was the best stuff ever. What pushes it up is those last 10 minutes. You do have stuff with, you know, Henry and those kids he was playing around with and such, and he's just trying to get used to the Hilltop life or whatever. I mean, that stuff, it was important, but it's not like the best, most entertaining stuff ever. But it was important for sure for what they did later on in the next half of the season. But I love the last 10 minutes. That's all I really care to talk about, honestly. With the whole foggy atmosphere. I wish the show wasn't as film grainy, though, because the fog could look a lot cooler if it wasn't as film grainy. But that scene, I would say, is probably within the top 5 best moments in The Walking Dead history. I think it is, at least one of the top 5, where Jesus goes to swing at that walker, and it's actually a whisper, and he ducks and stabs Jesus. Although I didn't want Jesus to die, it was such a cool death that I forgave it. I really did. I forgave the fact that Jesus was gone. I didn't really care that much about Jesus' character, honestly. They didn't make him as interesting as he was in the comics, so I wasn't too against it. But that scene was just phenomenal. Phenomenal. And then the whispers all kind of come around them, and oh my god, that was intense. Just frightening stuff. Awesome. Loved every second of that. That alone pushes it up that high for me. Of course, you have Michonne. I believe she was bringing the people from... she ends up coming to help them out as well because, you know, she heard the issues that was going on with them and that they needed help and such. I liked it. I liked it a lot. There were a lot of rising tensions as well because Michonne was going back to Hilltop and it seemed like they didn't really have a good relationship going on there. And we kind of learned a little bit about what was going on, but not until later on we kind of learned way more about what was going on. But it kind of gave us a little bit of hints about what was happening. Coming number 14th spots, I've got Season 8, Episode 12, which was titled The Key. So The Key was an episode that was definitely like, I don't want to say filler, but it was almost like, I don't really know what to describe it. It definitely didn't feel like it needed to be there because you had Episode 11, and they were kind of building up this battle, and of course you could have just had them attack Hilltop, but they did need a reason for Negan to get separated from the group so Simon can do what he was going to do. But did it have to be a whole episode? I don't really know, but I loved it. So who the hell cares? Okay, I loved the Negan versus Beta, not Negan versus Beta. I wanted Negan versus Beta so much that I can't get it out of my goddamn head that I keep wanting to say it. Rick versus Negan. All the stuff with Rick versus Negan was fantastic. Now, it could have been a little bit better. I say that about everything. Everything could have been a little bit better. But it was pretty fantastic. So, you had especially when he just went all out, drove after him in that really cool car chase sequence, gets him into the building, and chases after him. And eventually, they just have this little conversation where they're talking to each other. And that was really cool. The dialogue itself was some of the best stuff. And then when they actually confront each other towards the end of the episode, when he lights up Lucille on fire, that fight scene was awesome. And all while this is happening, you also have Maggie, Michonne, Rosita, and Enid meeting with Georgie and kind of learn a little bit about Georgie. So this kind of builds up Maggie's exit for season 9, which I think is, you know, important to build that up a little bit. I wonder if Georgie will ever return, to be honest. I have no idea. But I really did enjoy this whole episode. It was building up a lot of stuff, and then Georgie gives Maggie this key to the future thing, which really was important for what happens in season 9. So a lot of important stuff, although, like I said, I don't know if it needed to be its own entire episode. It could have probably been found somewhere in another episode, but again, do I care? No, because I loved the damn episode. Coming number 13th spot, I've got season 2, episode 12, which was titled Better Angels. So this is Shane's episode. Season 2 was Shane's season, to be honest. So that's just the way it is. But this episode was pretty phenomenal. I would say my favorite episode of season 2. Yes, episode 7 is not on this list. I do love episode 7. It would probably be within the top 30 or 35, but, you know, it's unfortunate that it couldn't be included. But Better Angels has this opening with Dale's eulogy, I think is what they call it, where they were kind of just talking about how they would honor Dale because they had a little funeral for him. That was, you know, pretty sad scene, really nice music. This episode had a really good soundtrack. Pretty much all these episodes have great soundtracks going forward, so no point in me continuously bringing it up, but I probably will, especially for the really, really good soundtracks. But I just loved when Shane goes just berserk. He has this conversation with Lori, and he realizes Lori, like, kind of forgives him for a lot of the stuff he's done, and they're on good terms, and that just makes him realize, I need to get rid of Rick, bro. I need to get rid of Rick because I love that girl. I want to be with her. I gotta get rid of Rick. She'll get over it, and we'll move on and be happy together. So that's what he does. He lets Randall go, snaps his neck in the woods so he can get Rick out there. And everything with him and Rick out in the woods, fantastic, especially when they eventually go out further into the woods, and that whole entire scene probably my top 10 favorite scenes in The Walking Dead, where they're talking. Rick's like, yo, you can't do this to me. Like, you know, we can walk back to the farm. We can forget it's ever happened. And Rick pulls a fast one on him, stabs him in the stomach, kills him. Wow. And then the episode ends with the herd in the background coming towards the farm. Just wow. Fantastic episode. Carl had some interesting stuff in it as well. I loved it. Better Angels, one of the best episodes of the show. Come number 12 spot, I've actually got Here's Negan, season 10, episode 22, the newest episode in the show. Obviously, I already talked about this recently. Loved it. Loved it. Could have been better, sure. I honestly just want a mini series out of this Here's Negan thing. I want to see more, but for what it was really good. The acting especially was fantastic. Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Hilary Burton Morgan, amazing acting, amazing, some of the best from the whole series. But what this did for Negan's character, to show him from being this not so good man to really good person trying to, you know, help his wife out, to back to a really shitty person, and then end up becoming a douchebag and a borderline, I mean, yes, a murderer, let's be real here, and then kind of back to being a kind of a redemption later on, is just so interesting. And the way the episode was structured to keep going in these flashbacks that eventually built back up and kind of like went, you know, back to the present, was brilliant. Like, the writing was so good, the dialogue was so good, all so good. And then Negan just having some badass moments, like coming in there and killing that one dude, just awesome. Stuff with Lucille, though, was some of my favorite, honestly. Some of those heartbreaking stuff ever, especially seeing this. You're crying for a character who killed Glenn. Like, come on. But it's that powerful that it makes you cry about it regardless, because you feel bad, you know, you do. Some of the just best scenes and some of the best performances, I don't really want to go on and on because I've talked about this episode enough times now, but it's amazing. It's amazing. Coming number 11th spot, I've got season 4, episode 16, which was titled A. So another finale here. This one I think is also kind of underrated. I do think people love this episode, but I don't think it's praised as much as I think it deserves. But let's talk about what I love about it. So the first 10 minutes of the episode, basically 15 minutes, whatever, is essentially just Rick, Michonne, Daryl, Carl just going about trying to get to Terminus. And then, or no, Daryl wasn't there. It was just, you know, Daryl was obviously with Joe's group, but Daryl comes eventually with Joe's group when Joe's group attacks them and basically says, I'm gonna kill you guys for what you did. And wow, was this some amazing stuff. So some of the most intense stuff too. We see this just intense music playing as Carl's being like almost like he's being attacked, assaulted by this one dude. Daryl's getting the shit kicked out of him. Michonne gets slapped. Rick is just sitting there trying to fight back, but it's not really working. And we just see all this go down. And I would say probably my second favorite moment in the Walking Dead history. It's one of the best moments. Rick bites Joe's throat, and everyone just looks, and it's just like, what? And then Michonne pops the one dude, Daryl punches the one dude, and then when Rick takes that knife, gets to the guy who was basically about to do some disgusting stuff to Carl, and just stabs him up with a knife. I love that scene. And that scene almost kind of distances Carl from Rick in a way. Like, he doesn't even want to be with his dad because he just feels weird. Like, he feels off because seeing what his dad was doing to this person, even though like he deserved it. It was just like, holy shit, my dad's like just slaughtering this dude right in front of me. And it made Carl all sorts of fucked up. And I really love how the story played out. And then they go to Terminus and they find out Terminus is batshit crazy. So much stuff was happening, and then they get locked in train carts with that really awesome ending where Rick's like, you're fucking with the wrong people. Obviously, for the AMC version, they had to say, you're screwing with the wrong people, but if you watch the Blu-ray version, he says you're fucking with the wrong people. Great stuff. Oh yeah, don't forget the scene when Rick called Daryl his brother. Also amazing scene. Just a great finale overall. Now we're getting into the top 10, and these episodes are all, I would say, above 9.5 out of 10, probably even higher, probably like 9.6 out of 10 and higher. These are all episodes that I've rewatched multiple times because of how good they are, and I will continue to rewatch them because of that. So in the 10th place, we have Last Day on Earth, Season 6, Episode 16, the finale of Season 6. A very, very underrated episode. People hate on it solely because of the cliffhanger. Did the cliffhanger bother me? Yes. Does it ruin the episode? Hell no. Hell no. Especially after seeing Season 7, Episode 1, which we'll get to later, of course. After seeing that, this episode, you don't even, this cliffhanger doesn't bother you anymore, because whenever you want to watch it, you can literally watch 701 right after. You know, that episode and this one works together so perfectly because it's like one combined episode almost. It could have been one combined episode if you really wanted to make it like a long, would it be like an hour, maybe like an hour 40-minute episode, but that would have been kind of cool if they did something like that, like a movie-like episode. Call it Something to Fear. I don't know. I loved it. I loved the shit out of this episode. So there was this really, like, I love episodes like this where you have this impending doom of something. You don't really know exactly what it's coming, when it's coming, what's exactly coming, but you know something bad's coming. Every character's on edge. Every character's kind of freaking out. I love episodes like that. This was one of those episodes. You had the characters trying to get Maggie to the hilltop and being stopped at every single position from the saviors, and they were running out of ideas. They didn't know what the hell to do. And that made for some really intense scenes where the stakes were really high because Maggie has a baby and she's Maggie. You don't want her to die. And some of our favorite, characters were captured by the saviors. All this was happening, so we didn't have a lot of our good team members with them trying to help out. Daryl wasn't there, Glenn, Rosita, Michonne, they were all captured. And that last 15 minutes where they get captured finally by Negan's introduction, everything with that was fantastic. Fantastic. One of the best speeches and monologues in show history. Probably within my top 3 favorite moments in the show, or maybe top 5. I don't know, because I don't know if you count the next episode's moments as the same thing. I don't know, but some fantastic stuff here. And all while this is happening, you also have little Carol and Morgan storyline going on here, where Carol wants to be left alone, and Morgan's like, hell no, and Morgan ends up having to kill a dude. That stuff wasn't nearly as interesting as the stuff happening with this group, but it was still entertaining nonetheless. And as a whole, this episode is just perfect. It really is. I think there's really not much you can do about it that can make it better, other than maybe just don't have the cliffhanger be there. Or maybe if this was episode 15 and they had the same cliffhanger, I wouldn't care as much, because then episode 16 would be 701, so it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But having to wait like 8 months is where the problems kind of came into play, because you lost a lot of that momentum that the episode built up. But if you're binge watching, it doesn't even matter at all. So the people who are just watching the show now, I don't think the cliffhanger really bothers them too much, so I can't really hold it against the episode too much. Coming number 9 spot, I've got the season 7 finale, which was titled The First Day of the Rest of Your Life. This is actually my favorite finale of all time, or favorite like full-on season finale, which I didn't realize that until I was filling out this list. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's actually my highest rated finale ever. So this was just a really amazing episode in basically majority of the ways. So the first half of the episode was, again, building up this conflict that was gonna come down. We knew it was gonna happen because saviors, they were gonna come back and be like, yo, what the hell's going on here? We have to talk. We have to do something about this situation, because Sasha came in guns a-blazing trying to kill our people, right? And you have Eugene there, which the Eugene stuff they did, I wasn't a big fan of, but that's more of a problem with the whole season, not really a problem with the episode, but weird stuff. But I really do like how it was all set up with the trash people, the scavengers, whatever you want to call them, kind of like setting them up in a way, or working with the saviors secretly behind their back. It's realistic. It's something they would do. Like, oh, they found a better deal with other people, so fuck you guys. I have no reason to be with you guys if I made a better deal here. So they, pull a fast one on them. I really like that twist. One of my favorite twists out of any twist they've done in this show. And was it predictable? For some people, sure, but a lot of people I saw definitely was surprised by it, and I really liked the way it played out. And the battles that ensue here, some of the best battles in the entire show. So you have the first little battle that ensues when Sasha turns out of the coffin, of course, almost kills Negan. He does attack Negan, but doesn't kill him. Carl starts shooting, whole battle breaks out, and it's a pretty cool battle for sure. But of course, Rick ends up getting captured, and he's about to kill Carl. Negan's about to kill Carl in this one scene, but goddamn Shiva comes, saves the day with one of the coolest scenes ever, and the kingdom rolls up with the hilltop as well, and they just all start firing, and it's a massive battle. Could the action been shot a little bit better? Sure. You know, I'm sure there's some instances here and there where it's like, why are those characters there? I feel like they're out in the open. They'd probably be shot and killed. But who cares? It's a TV show. I was just having fun with it. It was really cool to watch. And it made for a really awesome finale. And then it leads into a really cool ending sequence where Maggie's kind of having this speech where, you know, they're kind of talking as an entire community, as an entire group, all the communities together talking, kind of planning out the future. And this is the first time they were all working together, really, which makes it really impactful. And I think after a long season 7 of a lot of just kind of meh, slow episodes, because season 7 had a lot of slow episodes, having this big, massive finale was such a reward for so many fans. So it's got to be high up there for me. Coming number 8 spot, I've got season 9, episode 15, The Calm Before. So this is, of course, the big Pikes episode, which I do not like the Pike choices, the characters they chose for the deaths, but that doesn't ruin how amazing the scene was itself, because the way the scene was shot and directed, and the acting from the characters, and the beautiful musical score by Bear McCreary was just outstanding. One of the best scenes ever, one of the most heartbreaking scenes, especially when you see Carol's reaction to Henry being there and Daryl trying to protect Carol from seeing that. That was some hard shit, and it was fantastic. And the rest of the episode was still pretty damn good. You had stuff going on at the fair, a lot of characters having some just fun interactions with each other. It was really cool just seeing the fair on screen. I didn't think they would actually do it, and they did, and I'm really glad they did, because it was such a cool part of the comics, and I really enjoyed basically every second of it. And then, of course, you know, when there's conflict arising, they kind of have to deal with it while wanting to keep the fair safe, but it doesn't matter, because Alpha came in, grabbed people, you know, to the side and killed them off screen, and then we saw the heads on Pike. Heartbreaking shit. And then we get to see that one scene where they're all trying to fight back in the barn as well, when some of the Highwaymen guys came in to try to, you know, save them. So good. So good. As much as I hate the choices on the Pikes, it was really, really good. And then you have the scene, of course, where Alpha shows Daryl the Horde. Really crazy shit. So yeah, I gotta say, one of the best episodes, but it is not the best, of course. Coming in number 7th spot, I've got season 5, episode 1, No Sanctuary. So I think most people would have this relatively high, probably even higher than I do, but I think the episode is bogged down slightly because they have a lot of scenes with Tyrese and that one guy. And I think it was cool to kind of get more development from Tyrese here, but they showed way too much of him, honestly. I just wanted to see the stuff going down at Terminus, but the stuff going down at Terminus, wow, okay, that opening scene alone where all those guys are getting their throats slit, and then eventually they break out because Carol just goes berserk and just destroys a whole like oil barrel or whatever that was, the fuel tank, blows up, starts this big mayhem, brings the whole herd there as well, and then she goes in, kills a bunch of people, Rick kills a bunch of people. Awesome, man. One of my favorite scenes in the entire Walking Dead. I keep saying that in like all these episodes, but a lot of these episodes have some of my favorite scenes. One of my favorite scenes when Rick goes behind that one guy, stabs him in the back, grabs his AK-47, and lights up those couple other dudes with the AK-47. That's the first time he actually gets that AK-47. Wow, though. That was such a great scene. Goes down history as one of the best scenes in The Walking Dead. And then the reuniting with Carol at the end of the episode, and, you know, Rick hugging her, Daryl hugging her, and then reuniting with Judith. Beautiful stuff. And then we see Morgan at the end of the episode in the after credits. So a jam-packed episode with some awesome action, with some awesome scenes, and even Tyrese kicking that one dude's ass was cool and all, although I didn't love seeing all the scenes there with him. It was still cool seeing him kick the dude's ass, even though he didn't end up killing him, actually. He kept him alive, told the group that he killed them. But I love the Hunters and the Terminus storyline. It was a really cool part of the storyline. It was kind of short, but it was short and sweet, so I enjoyed it. Coming number 6 spots, I've got season 8, episode 9, which was titled Honor. I don't see people putting this episode high at all. People say it's trash just because Carl died in it, and I'm like, man, shut the hell up. I don't care if whatever issue you had with Carl dying, that doesn't change the fact that this episode was a masterpiece. So there was 2 main things happening. You had obviously Carl dying, clearly, and that was all heartbreaking as fuck. Seeing Rick and Michonne just breaking down over it. A lot of amazing dialogue there. Every scene with them was just beautifully acted by all 3 of them. I don't usually praise Chandler's acting, but he did amazing in this episode. So did Andrew Lincoln, so did Denai Guerra. Really amazing stuff. And all while this is happening, you also have Carol and Morgan just kicking ass in the kingdom, trying to rescue Ezekiel from Gavin and the group of saviors there. That stuff was fantastic. Morgan was just going off. Seeing Morgan kill saviors is always going to be entertaining, so I loved it. And then we get towards the end of the episode, and I really love this parallel here where Carl, and this is when I realized I have no problem with Carl dying. Originally, when they revealed he was bitten, I had a problem with it. I was pissed off. But this episode completely just dropped my problems because I realized why they're doing it. They're doing it because they wanted to give Rick a reason, a really good emotional reason for keeping Negan alive and for giving him mercy later on. And obviously that all connects back to Siddiq as well. Siddiq with that phrase, my mercy prevails over my wrath. That was a beautiful phrase that really is the theme of this season, which is one of the reasons I like this season. And I know people don't. I do, though. And the way it plays out towards the end of the episode where Carl's talking about this future where they could work together with Negan. They could work together with the Saviors. They could be, together, right? They don't have to fight. And then we kind of cut over to Henry, who stabs Gavin in the back and just kills him. Not in the back, but in the neck, whatever. Kills him. So 2 child characters doing completely opposite things with completely different ideals. And they have this little theme play for Henry, which is Carl's theme, but they changed the last note to being a deeper theme, like a darker, not darker, but like, what do you call it? I'm not a musician. I don't really know how that works. A lower theme, like a lower note, like it's lower than Carl's theme, where Carl's theme gets a little bit higher as it goes on. This one gets lower. And I think that shows that this character is supposed to be kind of like going down a dark path. He's like Carl. He's a kid. And that's what happened with Carl in season 3. Remember when he brutally murdered that one kid, right? Not the same scenario here, but kind of similar. And then obviously Henry took over Carl's storyline in season 9. So I guess it kind of makes sense. I kind of wish they did more with Henry because of this. I think he was building up to be an interesting character, but they kind of just threw that away and said, now let's just give him Carl's story and then just kind of kill him off. Whatever. This episode, though, beautiful acting, and the action was pretty great as well, so I definitely appreciate it because of that. And the top 5, number 5, What Comes After, season 9, episode 5. So Rick's final episode, I mean, come on, it's his final episode, man. Some of his best performances. Again, Andrew Lincoln kills it every episode he's in, but he had some amazing scenes, specifically in this one. So we have a lot of flashbacks here. Well, not really flashbacks, but like hallucinations of some sort. And I don't usually like hallucinations, but they work in this episode because they're big name characters. You have Shane, you have Herschel. Sasha was a weird one, but I'm pretty sure they just picked a random person that they could find that would be available because they were like, oh, we could have used Glenn, we could have used Carl, we could have used Lori, but like they weren't available, so Sasha was the next best thing, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. Shane Herschel though was still fantastic. I like Sasha as a character, but like, does she really mean that much to Rick? I don't know. Still though, those flashbacks were all amazing. Rick seeing all the bodies in that one hallucination, I think that was kind of like the idea of a future of what if he's not there for his family? What if they die because he's not there for them? And that was kind of like what he was imagining there, which was really gruesome to think about. And the way the episode ends obviously was fantastic, with Rick blowing up the bridge with one of those amazing soundtracks playing from Bear McCreary and causing the herd to fall down with him. But he's okay. So it's all well and good, right? And all this is happening. Also, Maggie goes to Alexandria to essentially kill Negan, but she ends up not doing it, obviously. She kind of talks herself out of it because she realizes Negan's worse than dead because he's like suffering in his prison cell. So she's like, whatever, I'll leave him there to just suffer. She kind of gets over it because she hasn't seen him in the prison cell. So I guess she wasn't really able to know how he's doing, so I guess that's why it worked. And I like that stuff a lot. I think that was a really cool scene, really well acted by both Lauren Cohen and Jeffrey D. Morgan. And the way the episode ends with doing this massive flash forward with showing Judith all grown up was mind blowing, because we were like, wow, we're getting like an 8 or 6 year time jump. That freaked everyone out. I loved the idea of it though, because I did want to see the story pushed a lot further. I was loving everything they were doing, but it really changed the show, in my opinion, for the better. You know, it completely gave us a new feel to the show because it was further in the future. It was a lot different now. The characters were aged a little bit. So yeah, I definitely gotta say this is one of the best episodes of the show, but it is not the best. We got a couple more on the ranking list to go through. Coming in the number 4th spots, season 3, episode 4, Killer Within. So this is the first episode that made me realize I fully love the show, right? So it was like season 2 finale was the first one I watched, and I was like, oh, this is pretty awesome. So I was gonna watch more. This was the one where I was like, oh, I love the show, right? But then episode 8 was the one where I was like, oh, certainly my favorite show. You know what I mean? Like that's, it kind of like was, you know, incrementally increasing as the episodes went along. But this one was so impactful in so many ways to me. This episode is one of the most heartbreaking in the entire show, which to me was more impactful because I guess it was more meaningful at the time, because I could relate to Carl's character. Well, I mean, my mom's not dead, but like, you know, I can relate to her in terms of like the fear of losing your mother like that. And it really does hit you hard when that happens, because he doesn't, obviously this doesn't have to happen. There could be so many other ways where she could be okay in the scenario, but because the walkers got in at the wrong time, they're stuck here. Laurie wants to keep the baby safe. I mean, I didn't even like Laurie's character that much, but I cried like a bitch because of this episode, man. So there was some great stuff here, right? Especially with that scene, Lauren Cohen's acting, just everyone's acting in this entire scene when Laurie was giving birth to Judith, because from C-section obviously, and Carl has to put her down. It's so heartbreaking. And then Rick's reaction to it later, I mean, oh my god. But even just everything else around that, the walkers attacking, the people having to fight back, the group being really just fearful of this, being attacked by the one dude with, I forget the guy's name, but the one prisoner being attacked by him in the generator room, and then Oscar saving Rick, showing that Oscar is a loyal person. That all was beautiful. And then all this is happening, you also have some scenes at Woodbury, which definitely weren't the most interesting stuff in the episode, but they were definitely building up Andrea and, you know, her idea of Woodbury a little bit. So it was important to be there, although it wasn't obviously the stuff that really just makes me love this episode so much. Obviously the stuff that makes me love the episode is just the insane amount of intensity of this group of walkers being just swarmed through the prison and putting obviously Laurie, Carl, and Maggie in this really peculiar situation that causes Laurie to die. And then Rick's reaction at the end is really heartbreaking. And yeah, this episode is just it's a masterpiece. So the top 3 for me has not changed since season 7. I don't know if it ever will, because these episodes are so damn good. I hope season 11 can give us that one episode that just pushes itself above this. Who knows? Maybe if they bring Rick back, maybe for like the finale and they have some big battle episode, maybe like CRM versus Commonwealth, maybe they could, but I don't know. But let's go through these. Number 3 is going to be season 7 premiere, The Day Will Come When You Won't Be. This episode is beautifully horrifying. It is one of the most grotesque, gruesome, disturbing episodes ever, one of the most just gut-wrenching, gut-punching, whatever things ever. But it is so well directed, so well acted, so well everything, that I don't know, man. It's so good. It's hard to put into words. It's hard to put into words how good this episode is. It made me completely forgive the cliffhanger from last season, because they followed it up with just one of the best episodes ever. So yeah, the way it built up this tension of who the hell got killed was beautifully done. Having Rick have these flashbacks of all the characters, kind of thinking about them, and then eventually Negan tells him to think about what happened, and then he thinks about it, and we get that flashback. Rick's like shaking, it was intense music's playing, we see Eeny Meeny Miny Mo from Rick's perspective, and then we see Abraham get it, and we're like, oh my god. And then it doesn't end there because Daryl punches Negan, and then he gives it to Glenn. I was spoiled by this. I actually knew it was coming because spoilers were a bitch at the time, but it is what it is. I knew it was coming. Didn't matter. Even knowing it was coming, it physically made me feel sick. I was sitting there bawling my eyes out, just like shivering basically. One of the craziest experiences to a TV show episode ever, bro. Amazing though. It was amazing. And I don't think we're ever gonna get anything like this again because people stopped watching the show because of this episode. That's how gruesome it was. It's how traumatizing it was for some people. They stopped watching, and I want to see more stuff like this in the show, but it's just not going to happen because it's just too gruesome. But I think it had to be this gruesome. It had to. The way it impacts you as a viewer is what it needed to do. It made you go in the state of just sadness and just utter like shit. Like, you know what I mean? And it made Negan the most hateable character at the time. But he slowly builds himself up as this hilarious guy who you can't help but love because he's just so funny. Eventually redeems himself somehow, and now he's one of my favorite characters. Actually, he is my favorite character currently on the show that's still alive and still around. So, yeah, I don't know how he did that, but he did that. So, oh my god. And then, of course, you have the stuff with Negan and Carl and almost cutting off Carl's arm, or forcing Rick to cut it off, but he stops him. And then the scene at the end where everyone's crying, and then there's this music playing, and then the dinner sequence. I mean, just amazing, amazing episode. Coming at the number 2 spot, No Way Out, season 6, episode 9. So this is going to be probably most people's number 1. I feel like this is definitely one of the most popular episodes. Of course, it's phenomenal. The build up to it was just great. We were all expecting No Way Out to actually be the season 6 mid-season finale because that made more sense, but I was okay with it. Of course, it was kind of annoying having this big cliffhanger and then we wouldn't get the big one till the next episode. But again, I was okay with it. I know why they did it, most likely because they wanted to, because it was after a break. It's good to make some of the bigger episodes the premieres because you get a lot of people excited for them. If it's not really going to be a huge episode, not many people are going to watch it. This episode ended up being pretty highly viewed because of the fact that it was building up this really amazing episode, and holy shit, it delivered. Some of the best Walker, actually no, the best Walker action ever in the entire franchise, obviously. There was minor human conflicts with in the beginning episode with obviously Daryl blowing them up with the RPG, but the majority of the episode was just a Walker threat, which is what The Walking Dead was originally based on. So of course it's going to feel very classic to a lot of fans, and having everyone stuck in the houses and just trying their best to get the hell out and just stay safe was just really awesome. One of my favorite scenes is of course the scene where the Anderson family gets kind of fucked. You know, you get Sam getting eaten alive, which was really gruesome, then Jesse gets eaten alive, and then Ron just says screw it, points a gun at Rick. Michonne stabs him, he shoots at Rick, but it ends up missing and hits Carl in the eye. Wow. I mean, all that stuff in that scene was just fantastic. And then the episode builds up, more and more characters trying to do different things. You have Denise with the one wolf guy. I believe his name was Owen or something like that, but cool stuff there. Carol ends up killing him actually, and then that kind of leads Carol to kind of reevaluating whether or not she wants to kill people anymore because she realizes this guy actually helped Denise, so he wasn't a terrible person. That was all interesting. I love that. And then Rick obviously brings Carl to Denise. Denise helps him, and then we get one of the best scenes, another one of the best scenes in The Walking Dead, where Rick takes out his hatchet, goes out to the walkers, and just goes swinging. I don't know why we can't have more choreography like this, because the choreography has never been this amazing against walker action. It's always been, as of recently especially, they have someone go up to a walker, they swing, and then they cut to the walker getting chopped. I want to see it all in one shot. So this shot here where Rick's just going and just slicing at the walkers and it's all one shot, was fantastic. And then they start doing some cuts to some different shots, but it was really cool the way it all played out. And then everyone starts coming out and helping, and the way that all the Alexandrians, even the ones that aren't big fighters like Eugene, Gabriel, Eric, a bunch of other Alexandrians, they all come out. Olivia even comes out, and they start helping. It was phenomenal. The theme here is obviously the fact that, like, yes, everyone can come together, and when everyone does come together, they can accomplish a lot more. That theme was beautiful, and the way it played out was amazing. And then we get the end scene where everyone's fighting together, and they're all just lining up, and it's taking him out. Glenn almost dies again, but he lives just to die a couple episodes later, but whatever. Really cool stuff. No Way Out's fantastic. Really not much more I have to explain there. Obviously, you guys probably agree with me. But the #1 episode of the entire show is going to be Season 10, Episode 21, Diverged. So this is the episode that was very recent with Carol and... I'm kidding. It's Too Far Gone, Season 4, Episode 8, the mid-season finale. So this episode is perfect to me. I mean, okay, no, it's not perfect. There's one tiny thing you could probably fix, as you could with anything else, and I would say make the battle a little bit longer. It could have been longer. It could have been more action-packed, maybe. That's it. That's really it. I can't think of a single other complaint to make, because the episode's perfect. It's this big lead up to the governor just saying screw it, and he's not attacking them for the same reasons he was attacking them in Season 3. He's a new person now. All he wants now is the prison. But he gets to a point where Rick's having this speech with him, which that Rick speech is one of the best. You know what? I will say it's the best scene in The Walking Dead. This is the best. I kept saying this whole video that this scene's like one of the best. No. This one right here, Rick's speech to Negan about being too far gone, that we can't let ourselves be too far gone. We're never too far gone. We can come back from being bad people, which is a big theme from this whole show. Redemptions. It's one of the biggest themes they've been doing with Negan recently. But this speech is so amazing. I loved it so much. And then the governor gets this look in his eye. Herschel's smiling. It's all happy. And the governor just says, liar. Swings. And it was so much more gruesome because it just chops his neck a little bit. It doesn't slice it clean off because that would be unrealistic. I'm glad they didn't do that. It just kind of chops him. And you know he's going to die because it's like a big cut, like, you know? The blood just starts pouring out and he falls. And then seeing Maggie and Beth's reaction was just heartbreaking. Rick pulls the gun. And then we get one of the best battles, the best battle in the show. We get the best battle in the show. And it was, you know, about 10 minutes long, but it was still amazing. Rick and Negan fight. Daryl has some cool kills. Even Lizzie kills a person or two. Tyrese has a couple of cool scenes. You get Michonne. I forget what Michonne really does. Does she do a lot? I don't remember what Michonne really does in this scene. Oh, well, she kills the governor in the end, of course, but, you know, I'm saying before that. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. I can't even begin to explain how awesome this stuff is. And then, of course, the end of the episode, Carl and Rick's reaction to seeing Judith's bloody carriage. Heartbreaking. I still don't really know if they actually thought she was dead or not, because, I don't know, maybe it was a lapse of judgment sort of a deal, because if a walker ate Judith, you would have seen bones there, unless maybe, I guess sometimes walkers could eat all the bones. I don't know, but how often does that really happen? I don't know. I just think they weren't thinking that straight, and they were just like, fuck, she's probably dead, and if she's not dead, at least we don't know where the hell she is. So that broke them down, and it makes me cry every time. It's such a good scene. The acting between Chandler Riggs and Andrew Lincoln was phenomenal. It was an amazing episode. I can't really say much about it. And that was the majority of the episode. The first like 15 minutes was the only stuff that wasn't this big conflict. And that stuff was still pretty great as well. You had a couple of cool conversations in the prison. Everyone was kind of just chilling because the sickness was kind of not as bad anymore. And you had the governor trying to convince his people to attack, or not really attack, but make this go through. Just really great stuff all around. So that does it for my top 25 best episodes of The Walking Dead. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Give me your ranking down in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.